All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to the Cannabis Minority Report podcast, powered by the National Cannabis Industry Association, aka the NCIA. I'm filling in for your normal host today, Khadijah Adams. My name is Mike Lomuto. I am responsible for the DEI initiatives at the NCIA, and I also have a coaching company that I have with my business partner, Vernon Speller, outside of the NCIA, although we are active and happy members of the NCIA in that capacity as well. So, just to give everybody here that's new a reminder of what we do here. The goal of our show is to highlight minority entrepreneurs in the space and share weekly news updates about what's going on, what they're doing in and for the industry as a whole. Whether they're part of our organization, the industry at large, we try to get a good diverse group of folks on here. This is the NCI's way of supporting minorities in the cannabis industry. So we interview minority and women entrepreneurs and companies that support social equity and social justice, social equity applicants themselves, and a host of other cannabis industry leaders and pioneers. We are streaming live on Facebook right now, so be sure to tag your friends to join us for another episode of the Cannabis Minority Report podcast today. When we return from our commercial break here, we're going to catch you up on the latest news as it relates to minorities in cannabis, and we will be speaking with Peter Contos and Doug Kelly of the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition today. I'm really excited for this conversation. I saw Peter. I've known Peter and Doug for a little bit, but we saw each other a few months ago at NECAN, actually in Chicago, and I got to witness the last part of their of a talk they did about something we're going to be getting into today. That's really exciting for the industry, and I'm just really stoked for that conversation. So let's go ahead and take a break right now. We'll get back right after this.
Here at the National Cannabis Industry Association, we have proudly represented small businesses across the cannabis industry since 2010. We represent Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. We have come so far in this fight to legalize cannabis, street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis.
The first draft was about 150, 180 pages, so this one we're approaching 300. So they did listen to not only the community at large, but also working with other committees within the Senate to really be thoughtful about putting together comprehensive reform. So, that's a long way of saying that we still have a lot more pages to get into and uncover. I do encourage everybody here to really become familiar with it and get a better understanding of what is going on at the federal level. Sometimes we kind of sleep on what's happening federally because we're so focused on working locally and at the state level, which is absolutely important. But we do want to make sure that we stay apprised of what's going on federally. And remember that at every level of government right now, there is a lot of seeking of answers of how to do this the right way by our legislators, our rulemakers, our politicians. And so being more involved and being more active, I think is definitely the direction to go at this point in time. That's another plug for NCIA's Lobby Days, which is happening September 13th and 14th in DC. Definitely reach out if you're interested in attending, if you're interested in sponsoring, if you're interested in being involved in any way. A couple things I do want to say on the act itself. I haven't dug into the full act myself. Just been looking at some of the summaries and the overviews, the press releases. I looked at there was a summary through I think it was Cory Booker's site that gave kind of an overview of the differences between the two bills, like the one that came out originally and the one that's now actually been officially introduced. One note that I want to make is that this one has a lot more robust language around things like banking. They've also, I believe, tried to go in the right direction with the tax situation. I will say that, and I'm not an economist and I understand that, but my initial 2 cents is that this is still going to be a pretty burdensome thing for most small and medium-sized operators. I think that they're trying to go in the right direction to try to make there be a distinction between them and the bigger operators, but I think that there's still a lot more work to be done. And on the restorative justice side of things, again, they're looking at trying to figure out how to make this more comprehensive in a way, even to the point that, for example, in the banking section of this bill, there's language around encouraging banks to make sure that they're using their practices as banks to really help disproportionately impacted communities that were impacted by the war on drugs. So there's a lot of work to be done. I think that's one of the big takeaways here is when you have a 300-page document that's coming out for the first time, there's always going to be a lot of work to be done. But if we all get here and we organize and we advocate and we have the conversations, I feel hopeful that the work can be done over this next, who knows how long this will take to get through. But anybody's guess is as good as mine. But getting that work done is going to be important. So, all right. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about today. The second thing, on a totally different note, is I got this book over the weekend. Really stoked for this. This is, let's see, Baca's, what is it called? It's Connection Through Cannabis, History, and Culture. And I'm not going to butcher the Spanish. My Spanish is not that good, but this is a bilingual book. It's an anthology of the newsletters, the bilingual newsletters that Baca has been putting out since last year. Very highly curated and very interesting and very necessary information to have if you're in the cannabis industry and looking to really build something from the ground up and really pay homage to the roots of the plants, the roots of the industry, the roots of the community. Baca really has a lot of pillars where they bring a lot of these different pieces together, breaking down silos and creating a much more multicultural and multi-generational industry. There's actually Santana is actually featured in here. Santana wrote a piece for them this year, and that's actually featured in here, Carlos Santana. So anybody that's a music fan, definitely worth checking out. He brings some great perspectives, having grown up in the Mission District in San Francisco through all the different eras of cannabis in California. So all the way up to now having his own brand in the industry. And a lot of other, really obviously lesser known cannapreneurs in here that have a lot of great things to say and a lot of great impact on the industry that they're already making. Folks like Lindsay Reiner up there in Humboldt County, native of Humboldt. She's an indigenous person, just really bringing the plant back to its roots, growing regeneratively, so on and so forth. So that said, Baca, they had their book release at Rosemary Jane dispensary near Lake Merritt in Oakland over the weekend that specializes in carrying equity brands. And I think that's something that's definitely worth celebrating. So I want to share that. It was a great experience. There was tamales and pupusas and there was music, and it was just a great event. It showed the community can come out and have a great time at a cannabis event, learning about the industry, learning about the products that exist in it. Next Level Edibles, Anthony Jenkins, he was set up there. He's one of our members that's really actively engaged. So anyway, really a lot of appreciation towards Baca, all the work they're doing. Bay Area Latino Cannabis Alliance, if you don't know them, definitely check them out and all the work that they've got going on. So that's the news today. Keoa and Baca, two big things, very different ends of the spectrum that we're trying to bring together so that make sure that, the Bacas of the world are the groups and the organizations that are being heard and represented as Keoa becomes developed. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and take another break here. When we get back, got a great conversation coming up here with Doug and Peter and everything they're doing in Illinois to really make an impact nationwide. So we'll go ahead and take another break here, and don't go anywhere.
Well, here at the National Cannabis Industry Association, we have proudly represented small businesses across the cannabis industry since 2010. We represent Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. We have come so far in this fight to legalize cannabis that it seems that it's almost inevitable, and we're the ones making sure that as those rules are written, they favor small businesses, mom and pop operators, and Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. In addition to making sure that your voice is heard at the federal level, being a member of NCIA also means building a vibrant community of small business owners within the cannabis space. Because we can always learn so much better by working together, learning from our mistakes and our successes, and building this industry together. So if you're interested in making sure that small businesses and Main Street cannabis has a seat at the table, be sure to join NCIA at thecannabisindustry.org.
Awesome. So welcome back, everybody. Like I keep saying, I'm really excited about this conversation. I met Peter and Doug a couple years ago, maybe even just a year and a half ago. Who knows anymore? The time definitely flows very interestingly. But I met them a little while ago at a Hush event. So shout out to Hush for bringing people together as always in Chicago. And these guys, they're doing the real work on the ground out there in Chicago, in Illinois. Everybody here, I'm sure, has heard about all the horror stories and all the things that have gone wrong in Illinois. These are two of the guys helping make sure that things go right and that we make the impact that this whole cannabis legalization in Illinois is intended to have. These are the guys that are doing the work in Springfield and also doing the work in the community in Chicago. So really, sometimes when I talk to them, I'm kind of saying, you guys are doing this and this and this, and they do it effectively. And one of the reasons that I want to say that they do this effectively from what I've seen is they're very methodical in how they do things. It's not that they're not taking action, they're taking a lot of action. But what I see is people that are really thoughtful about how to do things in a way that's going to impact the community properly and not just go out there for a virtue signal or just kind of raising a flag and saying, hey, we're doing this, but actually doing the real work. So, I don't say that just to blow smoke. I say that because I have a lot of appreciation for you guys. And I'm really glad to welcome you on the show today. So Peter and Doug, we'll start with Doug over here. Doug is the executive director, and Peter is the Deputy Director of Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition. Doug and then Peter, can you guys just give the audience, like tell us a little bit about yourself and like kind of what brought you into the space and being here today?
All right, I guess I'll go first. Hello, everybody. My name is, thank you, Mike, for that lovely introduction. And we really enjoyed it, the work you guys are doing there too, and giving us this opportunity to step on here today and tell everybody a little bit about ourselves. I'm the Executive Director of Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition. We started back in 2019 after it was legalization of recreational marijuana was going to happen here. And through a series of town hall meetings, one of the reps, Sonia Hopper, said, if you guys going to make an impact, you got to learn to advocate for yourselves and for your communities. And we've been doing that ever since. We're here fighting for equity and justice for Black and brown people in the cannabis industry. We're here to hold the state and the industry accountable for making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And this was supposed to help those mostly impacted by the war on drugs. And that's still not happening. So that's what we're here for, to continue to push that envelope and push them to do the right things surrounding cannabis here in Illinois. My background started back in manufacturing. Then it moved to real estate and then retail sales. Then now I'm here. Enjoying every minute of it.
I appreciate that. And so it sounds like the things you've done in the past touch on a lot of the different aspects that are really central and focal to cannabis. And I think that's given you a good probably understanding of how to be in the space in the first place. So I appreciate that. And Peter, tell us about yourself. Like, what were you doing before, before being one of the co-founders of Cannabis Equity Illinois?
Yeah, well, definitely, again, appreciate you making the space for us to join you today, and just appreciate the platform. Peter, I'm the Deputy Director of the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition. I've been a policy advocate and policy researcher for a lot of all of my adult life, but since I was a kid, I've been lucky enough to do advocacy work. It was when, I was 16 when I had a serious life, few health issues, a few concussion issues, led to a lot of health issues, and just complicated my whole my whole childhood. And so when I was a high schooler, I ended up finding cannabis in the midst of some difficult relationship with opioids. And so I found cannabis when I was a high schooler, and that completely turned my life around, and it really gave me a lot more structure in terms of what I wanted to do in terms of my advocacy. It really gave me a lot more drive to focus on cannabis, to focus on the war on drugs. And so I've been really lucky to have joined the coalition when we were in those town hall meetings back in March and April of 2019, where lawmakers are saying, hey, we're going to legalize the plant and we're going to let everybody out of prison. We're going to clear the records. We're going to get people licenses. We're going to put money back into the community. And it was in the town halls where people are saying, it's like, it's a lofty, you're setting a very high bar. This is the state of Illinois. Like, you sure you can follow through? And so, I was very lucky to be in those rooms when it was happening. It would just organically kind of spread. At the time I was in working in gun violence prevention, working on trying to do a lot of mental health and implement some laws that were just not being implemented in Illinois. And so it was at that time that these town halls were being held. And it just worked out that the coalition was really born as in the most organic way that I've ever seen. And so it was really incredible to see it happen, and, became a 501c3 in 2020 and continuing to grow from now. But I'm sure we'll talk about all that in a second. So I won't spill all the beans just yet.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Appreciate the background. And, I know getting a 501c3 is no easy task, and getting a 501c3 when you're doing stuff in the cannabis space is probably no easy task. So just that alone, tells me you guys have you going on the right path. On that note, Cannabis Equity Illinois, tell us about like what you guys do, like what are your main services that you provide to the community? Yeah.
Okay. We have several programs. First, and one of our biggest programs is helping people get their records cleared, expunged, or sealed, record clearing process. During that process, we started that a year and a half ago. It was a struggle with CPD trying to get them to open up everything, but we're here now and we're doing a phenomenal job. We're allowed to take 50 individuals to CPD for their fingerprinting. Our organization pays for their rap sheet. We partner with legal aid, and we also provide rides to and from CPD. just to remove all the barriers that we know that continues to plague our people in getting this process started. We do know your rights training, and that's where we go to our communities and educate the youth and the adults on the proper way to carry cannabis, how much you can legally carry, and how it still can impact your housing, employment, and immigration. We do a lot of policy work on what Peter talked about earlier, so I'll let him talk about that more. But we also do some youth education, teaching our youth how to advocate for themselves. And we also were a part of the first CBA community benefits agreement of its kind in the United States in the cannabis industry. So we're very proud of that. And we're going to continue to push for CBAs as new organizations open.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
And so just a couple more things to add to that. So Doug mentioned the expungement events that we're doing every 2 months. We're really excited that those continue to move forward. We're about to get some more funding so that we can bring all those services in-house. So we're super excited to expand those moving forward. We, on top of the record clearing work, we also do a lot of reentry support. We partner with a lot of different reentry organizations. So making sure that if somebody comes to our program and said, hey, I've been looking for housing, I've been looking for food assistance, I'm looking for a job, I need an ID, making sure we understand what are the needs of the people, what are the needs of the folks in the community, so that we can connect people directly to those services, because we know that the state is not going to provide them. And so it's on groups like the Coalition to make sure that folks are able to access those wraparound reentry resources. So we do, we table at events, we're at events every week, just making sure people are aware, what resources are out there, how can you get support, stuff like that. But we also do our own community resource fairs. We do these ourselves every quarter. So on top of all the events, the 3 to 4 events we go to each week, we do our own event every quarter to make sure that we're putting all the resources in one place. So, the housing, the IDs, the food services, the grocery giveaway, the workforce development programs, as many things in one place as possible. So that folks can meet their needs and learn a new skill or enroll in a program, whatever it takes, so that they can stay on this side of the community. So we're really excited about those programs continuing to expand. And the one thing I just wanted to add was the policy work. We work really hard on doing, surveying the community, making sure we understand what is it that our members want us to work on, what priorities do they want us to push. And then once we identify our agenda, we work with the Coalition, we work with our members, we work with our neighbors to ultimately research and draft legislation. We're reaching out to subject matter experts in California and Colorado, Massachusetts, and Michigan to see, okay, you all did this when you implemented a social consumption program, or you all did this when you created, your community reinvestment program. What can Illinois now do to make sure that we, if you learned positive lessons, great. How do we take those? If you learn, lessons of what not to do, great. How do we take those? Because there's no reason we should be reinventing the wheel. And so we're really excited for our policy program to grow even more this year. We have a lot of work to do to get Illinois. We want Illinois. We're not here to point fingers or to blame anybody for how it's gone. We're here to make this work. We're here to make sure that we identify legislation and policy that will actually, serve the people, invest in the community, build a sustainable business ecosystem, educate, the young people, and everything in between. So we're really excited about all the policy work that's going to be expanding moving forward as well.
I appreciate that. And I know I'm excited to have you say this to all of our listeners here, because I think the lesson that I hear here, and the reason that I feel so much, belief in what you guys are doing, is you guys, as you mentioned, you're focused on the solutions. You're focused on how do we fix this? How do we make this work? Right. And I think that that's so important in this space, right? In the whatever you want to call it, restorative justice, social equity, DEI, social justice, all these different aspects, basically trying to make the world a better place. This side of things, often, we can get a little bit bogged down in our own stuff and the noise and so on and so forth, right? And the distractions that really come our way in these areas. What I really appreciate about you guys is, as you mentioned, you're just in what you guys have said right now, you're building coalition, and you're the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition, and you're building coalition in all these different directions, right? It's this holistic way of looking at it, where it's, hey, let's talk to all the folks from around the country. Let's talk to the actual community here. Let's tie these pieces together, then go talk to the legislators in Springfield. So it's not just, hey, I have an idea, I don't like something, let me go complain about it. Yeah. It's let me come up with a holistic solution that works for everybody involved, right? So can you tell us about that process and why you guys do this way?
Well, one of the main reasons is, in order to make this work, we got to have point of views from every side of it, from the legislative community side. And that tends to be left out all the time. with our lawmakers, they tend to listen to the big corporations with all the money, the lobbyists who pay for the things to go their way. And when we started this and we had to take really examining, we went to our communities and it was like, so what should we be working on? What should we be doing as a coalition? And every one of those programs came out of those conversations, everything that we do. We feel it's important that in order for we get community to buy in, they got a stake in this. They got to hear that it's coming, some of their ideas are coming through this. And we take great pride in making sure that they're at the table as well.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and just wanted to add one thing to that is that, building this table out as much as possible is really something we've been very intentional about since we first started. So those town hall meetings, the clipboard got passed around. When we met for the first time as a group, there was a lot of uncomfortable conversations. Like, how is this person's story connected to this person's story? Like, why is my story connected to Doug's story? And there was some really important conversations that needed to happen, some uncomfortable conversations. A couple toes got stepped on, and people, it's getting folks to understand we need to build as big of a table as possible, because if we can connect all of these people who've experienced these different things, we can end, the ultimately end the war on drugs, and this form of systemic oppression. And ultimately, if we can end the war on drugs, we'll have the solution to, fixing this country, fixing this world for the better, and making sure that, the people have control of our own futures and our own destinies. And so, it definitely doesn't come without intention. It doesn't come without, it's a very painstaking conversations. Like, you really got to slow walk it and make sure everybody understands. All right, this is how this person's approaching this conversation. This is how you're approaching the conversation. Great. Here's where there's middle ground. Here's where we can connect. Here's where we can grow from, and stuff like that. So, that's been that's a learning experience. 3.5 years in the works, and continuing to grow. Yeah,
and one other thing I'm going to add. Me personally, I grew up on the South Side of Chicago in Inglewood area, was one of the worst areas at the time, and I know firsthand the impact that the war on drugs had on myself, my family, and my community. But now I have an opportunity to go back in full circle and make some positive changes to those communities that we visit all the time. And you can just see it. Part of the whole R3 was, to restore and reinvest in those areas that was mostly impacted. But we have yet to see that. So that's why we got to continue to push and make sure those things happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate the context. And I think it's that depth of understanding and the will, when you have a real serious mission that you're on, a lot of the noise gets, filtered out, and you're just like, look, we're on this mission. So how is the mission going? How are you guys doing it? I hear all the programs you have, and that's awesome. And what kind of results are you seeing? Like, what kind of response are you having from the community at this point in time? What kind of response are you getting in Springfield?
Due to the pandemic, last session was the first time we actually got a chance to really get to Springfield and really feel out and see what was going on. And it was very eye-opening, you know what I mean? Sometimes looking behind the curtain and seeing the wizard is not what it's all cracked up to be. So we took some hard lessons, and we really had to look and reevaluate exactly what's going on here so we can put together a better plan, which we did. You know what I mean? So when we go back for Vito and Lame Duck, we're going to be in a much better position to make a bigger impact. But as far as our programs go, we are doing a phenomenal job with it. Our rap sheet events are steady growing. We're being held back by the city of Chicago, not by what we're doing. You know what I mean? So we have to work within the parameters that we are given. Our resource fairs are well visited, because we bring in things that the communities need. To give them that same hope and values that we grew up on, that we want to get back to. So it's very important that we continue to do those kind of things.
Yeah, everything.
And the next resource. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add one quick note to that. To what Doug mentioned. It's always kind of it's a constant struggle to make sure that we're making our impact But there's one thing I just want to really be clear about is that, being accountable to the community is ultimately where that's what's going to tell us if we actually made our impact or not. And so is the Rap Sheet Day, continuing to be a service? Do people actually see value in it? And so continuously always looking to say, okay, we can, our lawmakers might not pass our bills. Doug and I we took a lot of L's in March and April trying to get people to understand why cannabis needs to move forward, how we can move it forward. And it was like, man, this is just not really convinced about this. But then we turn around and, we're in Springfield on a Wednesday, and on Friday we do a Rap Sheet Assistance Day, and we, connect with the community. We connect with our participants and the clients and making sure that folks feel comfortable and feel like, this is something that they're going to benefit from. And so always remembering that, the lawmakers might not listen to us, the corporations might not listen to us, some of the folks in power might make it difficult for us. But as long as we continue to be accountable to the people, then we know that we're continuing to move in the right direction, and continuing to live a truth in our mission.
Yeah, I think that's so key, and it's something that really resonates for me here at NCIA. We don't have federal legalization yet. We still haven't passed a big, meaningful piece of standalone legislation yet, and yet we're still moving forward because we know that we're still providing service of value to our members, right? We're still doing things like these podcasts, bringing people together, getting the word out, getting the message out there. Because to your point, you have to keep building, and you have to have that long-term vision of, we know this is going to take a while. We know this may not work the way we want it to, but we can create as much coalition as possible together. The power is in the people anyway. The power is amongst us. It's not amongst, the politicians represent us at the end of the day. And we need to remember that. We need to remember that we can still build coalition without their permission, right? We don't need the permission to build coalition. We can do that on our own. And so, that leads me to my next question is, so you guys are you guys like a member-based organization? Like, where do you get your support from, and how do you?
You kind of froze there.
We pretty good idea, but
no.
Okay.
Oh, there we
are.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Did you guys hear my question? No, doesn't sound like it. You did. Okay, cool. So yeah, what do you think? How do you guys work? Where's your support come from? How do people join you as members? How does that whole situation work?
Yeah, we have a membership that we introduced last year. We do a lot of it by donations and grants. We continue to apply for different grants and things like that. In our membership base, and donations from individuals who just see that we're really out here doing the positive work and getting things done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I was gonna say, we have definitely, we're relying a lot on our community members to support us. We have our membership program. It does start at $4 a month. So for the price of a cup of coffee, you can support the coalition, make a difference. I did just want to add, we really we're really thankful for the support of the philanthropic community and some of the state agencies in Illinois who've in the last 12 months have seen the value in what we do and have really started to invest in us. So groups like the Field Foundation, Crossroads Foundation, the Illinois Equal Justice Foundation have really made this possible. And so, they make this work possible. They make our programs possible. And so we're really grateful to them. Because one thing that we want to be really intentional about is that, yes, we have this individual equity membership. Folks can put money into the coalition. But that's not a barrier. If somebody doesn't have the means to put money into it, that's not really an issue to us. We're gonna work with you however you can be, however you want to work with us. If somebody doesn't have the means to donate money, but they have ideas they want to support, they want to table at an event on behalf of the coalition, they just want to put us in the room with somebody they know. They're like, hey, this might be a good conversation. So the point we want to make is there's a million ways to get involved with us. It doesn't mean you have to invest money. It's if you have ideas, if you have time, that goes just as long as the money, because we need all the support we can get. We build this plane as we fly it, and so really any support that is provided is really, really appreciated, and doesn't go without us noticing and us being grateful.
I appreciate that.
And that was also intentional, that we made our membership affordable, but we don't exclude anybody either. Our meetings are still open to anybody who want to join. It's just as simple as sending an email and say, could I have the link to your next meeting? Because we still meet every other Thursday on via Zoom from 6 to 7 p.m. So we understand, the value in having the community bring different ideas and thoughts, because sometimes just we're struggling with something and somebody completely new comes in and say, hey, have you thought about this? And then that triggers a whole nother thought pattern. So we're very grateful for the people that jump on every week and the people that just stop by.
That's awesome. And I mean, I'm jazzed up and fired up. This is a great way to start the week for me here on Monday. Just hearing about all the coalition building you're doing. I mean, I understand from doing the work I'm doing. I say, hey, how many, like, you guys have so many moving parts that you're trying to integrate together that you aren't just trying, you're actually integrating it together. And it shows in the results of you being this organization that is growing, that has a growing member base, that has supporters like the Fields Association, all these different groups of philanthropic groups. You're connecting with folks in Springfield. You're connecting with folks around the country. I know that we're talking with you. This is outside of NCIA. We're talking with you about this multicultural event that we're putting together. So I mean, all these different pieces, and you bring it all together. And at the same time, I love how it's like at the end of the day, it's simplistic at the same time, right? You're delivering very straightforward value. Here's what we're doing. We're doing expungement clinics. We're helping with the rap sheet, right? We're going to take this policy that we bring all these different ideas together and put it together, and then we're going to go to Springfield with that. The other thing that you guys mentioned today that I really am excited about too is, again, with the CBA, the Community Benefits Agreement. Same thing. I know a lot of work went into this. A lot of different ideas. A lot of different stakeholders had their say, and you guys came up with something that's very doable, very attainable, very achievable. Which we already know is existing and attainable, because there's a dispensary in Chicago that I'll let you guys talk about here in a second that's already getting great results with this. So can you tell us about the CBA? Like, what does it consist of, and what is the, why is it impactful? What's the intent of it? Yeah.
Okay, so the CBA, is a community benefits agreement with a business, and then the community come together. They sit down and hash out, what is it going to take for my community to thrive? You're moving into my community. You're going to bring in all this money. What are you going to do for my community? And that's where we come in and help the community work with the organization to build out exactly what their needs are for their community. Each CBA can be a little bit different because each area has different needs, So in the simplest things, when we looked at the CBA, so what do we need? We need a living wage, to get them to agree to a living wage, to give back to the community a certain percentage of their sales back to the community to help improve, reinvest, and restore those communities. We made sure that seniors were a part of the CBA, that you had to hire X amount of seniors. And then we wanted the population that was mostly impacted be impactful in those organizations. Like 75% of those that you hire come from a person that was disproportionate by the war on drugs. And we teamed up with Nature's Care, which is Acreage Holdings, and they jumped on it right away. And they pretty much hit all their targets within the first 6 months. They hired the people from the community. They're hosting Know Your Rights events. They're helping with the rap sheet days. So it's been a phenomenal relationship. And when everyone said it couldn't be done, they proved everyone wrong. It can be done, and it can be done very effectively.
Absolutely. And just want to add a little bit of context to everything Doug just said, because the reason that this was even important was even necessary in the first place was when Illinois legalized adult use, they let all of the existing medical operators, which by the time legalization came about, or by the year into legalization, pretty much all multi-state operators. The state essentially gave them a free adult use dispensary. On top of letting them open up stores on January 1st, 2020, they gave them essentially a free dispensary. And so, the coalition at the time was like, well, y'all have to do something more. If the state's going to give you something essentially for free, that's like $10 million, $15 million, like you have to do something to actually help the community. And so Just in terms of what that looks like in terms of organizing, we showed up at every single one of these community town halls across the city of Chicago. We're on the zoning board website looking at the schedule. We're looking at, all right, it's 6 o'clock Thursday. We need 3 people there. We got 6 o'clock Wednesday. We need 4 people there. It's literally organizing, showing up at all these meetings, making a call to action saying, hey, we want to work with you as a coalition. We're not trying to shake anybody down. This is about a holistic, project that we can build collectively. Some companies, unfortunately, didn't see the value in it. Some companies don't see the value in building authentic partnership in the community. But like Doug mentioned, Nature's Care West Loop really took it upon themselves. I want to shout out the COLA group, specifically Gary Little and Jamila Dorsey, because when the CBA campaign first started and they had agreed to do a program with Acreage, everything fell into place. It was very organic, and it just worked out perfectly. And they've been an excellent partner to work with over the last essentially. We're almost at 2 years now since they've opened their dispensary. And so it's really incredible to see this whole thing come to fruition. And ultimately, again, we started a campaign that, like Doug said, a lot of people didn't see the value in it. A lot of folks said, this is just not worth the time or the energy. But even one dispensary making a positive impact is a huge victory. And something that needs to be celebrated, and ultimately something that needs to be studied and replicated because this can be a positive model moving forward.
Yeah, and we actually had a couple of neighborhoods that took our lead, and we helped them also get a community benefits in their communities. So it is working. It's a slow process, but every time we can get one, it's a huge win for everyone else. And we also created a toolkit to teach other people how to do community benefits agreement, just so they can look at the toolkit and we give them step-by-step direction on how to set up a community benefits agreement. So we felt that was very important and necessary as well.
That's beautiful. I mean, again, like I said, you guys are building in front of everything I see the right way. I feel like this is like community organizing 2.0, like if 1.0 was like learning all the pieces and being upset, like 2.0 is, okay, now we understand all the pieces, let's integrate them and not worry about what went wrong. Let's worry about the solutions and creating, something positive for the future. I think that, it's not something you can understate, or overstate. I can never remember how to say that, but it's, the importance of each one of these dispensaries that signs on to something like this is so massive, because we're building the foundation of an industry right now that is still figuring it out. And, I want to be clear here, community benefits agreement, this is not, a lot of, so there within the applications for a lot of cannabis licenses now, you need to put that there's some kind of community, social kind of piece component to this. That's generally speaking, a paragraph or two of something that is vague and kind of not really sourced from the community itself, just kind of slapped on there. And, if you see somebody's applications in 3 different states and 20 different license locations, it's the same exact thing. What you guys have done, I think, is a whole nother level of, this is how to do business the right way. It reminds me of kind of the B Corp model, the benefit corporation model of, we can go above and beyond, we can create something different and something new, and it still has a great impact on the bottom line, right? Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is stated as, of course, people, planet, and profit, right? So, I appreciate what you guys are doing here. So we're going to wrap up here in a second. And I do want to note also that we've been talking with Doug and Peter, and if it all works out, I'm going to be really excited to announce that we're going to be doing, so I'm going to announce the pre-announcement here, is we're going to do a full-on webinar at the NCIA as part of our Catalyst conversations, just focused on the community benefits agreements and how Peter and Doug kind of went through the process and how they can be adapted to different locations, and what kind of ROI you can see as a business from this type of a thing. Because as you said, we need to start studying this more. We need to start putting this out there more, having more conversations around this. So something I think that the country and the industry very much needs. So with that said, I think the last thing I really want to ask you guys is, so we asked you guys already about, how do you get involved? I mean, I know we have some links here that we can share. We'll also be sharing the link for the Baca book as well. I was supposed to mention that. Vince gave me the good reminder on that one. And so, but definitely plug in through linking. And it sounds like pretty much any way that you want to get in, you can fit in with these guys here, as long as you have the right way of doing it. You're coming correct and really care about the community and making a positive impact. Peter and Doug and the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition here are here to figure out a way to make that work. Really the question I want to have here then is, what What are your parting thoughts here that you'd like to just leave folks with? If you're a new cannapreneur, or if you're somebody trying to build coalition in one of these other places where it's a little challenging right now, to be quite honest, because it's not as structured, and we don't have maybe Peter and Doug there with their experience helping us figure out how to make that happen. So, what kind of advice could you give to folks that are trying to make a difference and advocate in the space?
I think one of the big takeaways that I have learned personally is that we have got to organize around our legislators, because at the end of the day, and I don't care what state you go to or it comes to, they're the ones that's going to really be making your final decisions. It's important that you reach out to your legislators and let them understand the importance, because a lot of legislators who really don't believe in the whole thing, they're not going to do much. They're going to do the bare minimum and listen to whatever the lobbyists say that benefits the multi-state operators. And that's what caused a lot of problems in the legalization. You have to be on top of your lawmakers to really make a change. You got to go to the Capitol buildings, that Springfield here, and really let them understand. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to be easy, because it's not. You're fighting against a machine, but you can be impactful just by steady showing up. Once they continue to see you, then they start to listen to you, just like anything else. Like they say, you got to do some X amount of times before it sticks. So we go to Springfield every week to make sure it sticks. You know what I mean? So that's the biggest takeaway, is get your seat at the table, get with your lawmakers, and make sure they're doing the right thing by you and your community and your state.
That's great. And before I get to Peter's last comments here, I just want to piggyback off what you're saying, because this is spot on. And I want to say, a lot of times, we hear, oh, we'll get involved, call your legislators, but no, in cannabis, this is really important in cannabis. I'm not saying it's not important in other industries, but in cannabis, we actually have the ability to see the impact immediately a lot of the time. I'm not saying that, you go the first time and then they make an immediate change. My point is that, since everything's still so new, you might go 33 times, and then that 34th time they say, yes, we're going to do it. But then the impact of when they make that change is immediate, because the industry is still so new. So like we see in a lot of places where, whether it's a state or a local thing, advocacy has actually been able to make those changes happen in ways that, in other industries, they're so entrenched. Because when you talk about MSOs, multi-state operators, they're still really new themselves. They're not these longly entrenched businesses that have been around for 50, 60, 70 years, like in other industries. So, those interests are still newer, and those relationships are still a lot younger. So we can still show that, hey, we represent folks that vote for you or not. Mm-hmm. And if we're here enough, and there's enough people behind us, and the message is clear enough, we're like really doing you a favor and letting you know you're going to upset a lot of people when you do it this way, and you're going to have to do damage control on the votes on the other end. So, this is something we can do in cannabis. So, Peter, same question to you. Any last takeaways or thoughts that you'd like to, impart upon folks before we head out today?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. One is, first and foremost, be proactive. Don't wait for anything. No one is going to wait for you. No one's going to drop anything into your lap unless you're unbelievably lucky, which is very rare. So don't expect anybody to do the work for you. Regardless of where you are, it's going to take you putting in some kind of level of sweat equity to get wherever you're trying to get to. And it doesn't matter what side of the space you're in. It's the advocacy side, it's entrepreneurship side, everything in between. You have to be proactive. So I'm definitely going to recommend folks, just seek out information as much as possible. Follow groups like the Coalition on social media, because this information is out there. Our goal is to be as transparent and as accessible as possible. So follow us, reach out to us at Canna Equity IL. Please reach out with questions. Please, you're like, hey, I have this idea. Y'all said on the webinar to get involved if you have ideas. Literally, that's what I'm telling y'all to do is, follow on social media. At cannabisequityil@gmail.com is an easy way to reach the coalition more broadly if you ever want to reach out to us. If you want to support the coalition, our membership program, again, is cannabisequityil.org. If you look at the Become a Member icon and click on there, your donations really do make this work, make a huge difference in this work. If you might not think, all right, $4 isn't that much. The cost of a single rap sheet to start the record clearing process is $4. Somebody gets a ride to and from that event, that's about $30 to $40. And so thinking about like your annual costs, your annual membership is basically the cost of somebody to start the record clearing process. And so, really want to make sure that folks who have the means, please do, support the coalition, support groups like the coalition, because it's not just us out here. There's a bunch of different groups out here in the space that need the support. So definitely going to encourage folks to plug in where you can. And then, yeah, like Doug had mentioned, getting involved with your lawmakers, learning who your lawmakers are, because what Mike had said, we get to build this industry in our own vision. We get to build this thing from the ground up. The first couple of years might not go our way, which we all see, but we're in this for the long haul. We're not going to quit just because, one of our bills didn't get passed. We have way too much work to do. We have way too much, there's a huge impact that needs to be made. And until groups like the coalition and groups like that across the country are doing that work, we're going to continue to strive for that impact. So, yeah. And then if somebody doesn't, I guess my last point, if you're in a state that has not legalized or a state that has legalized, but you're looking for a group like the coalition, you're like, nobody's out here doing the work, please reach out to us. We want to have conversations with as many like-minded people as possible. We'll definitely be happy to share tips and ideas with you to help you figure it out. Because this is a very daunting space. It can be very, it's an uphill battle. It can be a lot to process. It can be a lot to contend with. But you're not alone. And so, definitely reach out to groups like the coalition. However we can be a resource to you, please reach out to us. Please use us as where you can, because again, we need everybody. This has to be a 50-state solution. So regardless of where you are, please, nobody's off limits. Like, we need everybody from Alaska and Hawaii to Florida to Maine, everybody in between, Iowa and Nebraska. Please reach out to us. Please reach out to the partners in the space, get involved, and we can all make an impact.
And remember, your vote do count. We put these people in office, we can take these people out of office. So we got to make sure people are doing the right thing by us.
Excellent. Man, we talk for hours, man. You guys, I'm looking forward to the next time we get to see each other. I believe your next event, your community event, is September 3rd in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is that correct? September 3rd?
It's actually going to be August 24th. We're going to be doing a community resource fair. We just got that on the calendar. So look out for a flyer for that in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, August 24th. We're looking to line some up for September 3rd, but keep an eye out for details.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So August 24th, we got that right there. All right. Well, thank you, Doug, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. Looking forward to, you guys coming back on the show in several months and letting us know kind of what the updates are. In the meantime, we're going to also work on that webinar with you all. And so for those of you watching and listening today, be sure to subscribe to the Cannabis Minority Report podcast via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or any of your other favorite platforms that you check out your podcasts on. If you'd like your products highlighted or your services highlighted on the Cannabis Minority Report podcast, or if you'd like to run your company's 30-second commercial during our show, go ahead and inbox Khadijah at Khadijah Adams. Info at KhadijahAdams.com. So with that said, stick around. We'll come back for closing thoughts, and we'll be right back.
Well, here at the National Cannabis Industry Association, we have proudly represented small businesses across the cannabis industry since 2010. We represent Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. We have come so far in this fight to legalize cannabis that it seems that it's almost inevitable, and we're the ones making sure that as those rules are written, they favor small businesses, mom and pop operators, and Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. In addition to making sure that your voice is heard at the federal level, being a member of NCIA also means building a vibrant community of small business owners within the cannabis space. Because we can always learn so much better by working together, learning from our mistakes and our successes, and building this industry together. So if you're interested in making sure that small businesses and Main Street cannabis has a seat at the table, be sure to join NCIA at thecannabisindustry.org.
Man, I got to say, this is the way to start the week. I know that some of you might be listening to this other parts of the week. For me, this is a Monday, and this is a great way to start a Monday. I'm out on the West Coast these days, so it's even earlier in the day too. With that all said, again, thank you, Doug and Peter, for joining us today. I want to remind everybody to definitely check out NCIA's member news blog. We do a spotlight series of all of our different members, especially our equity members. We also are, we're open to also sponsorship. So if you're interested in sponsoring the Cannabis Minority Report or any of our other DI initiatives, again, as I mentioned earlier, please reach out to Khadijah at info@KhadijahAdams.com. We also want to give a special shout out to all of our DEI program sponsors. We've had several over the last little bit of time. I'm drawing a blank completely right now, so I'm going to say thank you to Omar Figueroa. Thank you to Krishi Koja and his law firm out there in Sacramento. They've been big supporters of ours for a little while. To remind everybody, the mission of the DI committee at the NCIA is to educate, advocate, engage, and empower the community of cannabis and its members by cultivating partnerships with other nonprofit organizations with similar goals, providing resources that create and sustain an environment that is inclusive, equitable, and diverse. We're committed to building a culture that respects our members and celebrates their contributions as we work together to strengthen all communities in cannabis. I would say that the group that we talked with today, Peter and Doug out there in Illinois, the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition, embody that 100% and then some. My main takeaway from today is just keep going at it, keep the coalition the right way, recognize that everybody needs to be at this table in order for the table to really succeed and thrive. A party or a dinner with only one or two people at that table is not nearly as fun as when you get a lot of people at the table and everybody's able to eat, everybody's able to contribute something. So, keep following that model, reach out to Doug, reach out to Peter. Let's keep building this coalition together. Until next Monday, everybody, I'm going to sign off as Khadijah does. Peace, love, and hippie stuff. Thank you.
NCIA's Cannabis Minority Report is a product of the National Cannabis Industry Association and NCIA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We are hosted every week by Khadijah Adams. Our executive producers are Aaron Smith and Vince Chandler. We are directed by Vince Chandler and produced by Bethany Moore. Please, please, please find out everything you can about the growing and equitable cannabis industry at thecannabisindustry.org.